Hey guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will demonstrate how to use the Set Relations API using UI Builder and Codeless. In addition to the Set Relations API, there will be other things such as populating drop-down box from a database, creating objects using Codeless is going to be a kind of a complete use case. But the most important thing is setting relations. And the reason this example will include other things is because set relations needs some surrounding context, as you will see. Before we go into the actual UI builder and codeless logic, I'm going to demonstrate what I have in my database. And in here, there is a table called person, and there is a relation column called city of residence, which is a one-to-one relation to a table called city. And the goal of the demo that I have here is I would like to create a person object and then look up a city and then establish a relationship between the person object that I create and one of the cities in the database. The city of residence column can be created in the database schema section of backendless console. You can either use visual modeler, and for this, if you go in here, just select the person table, click plus, and then declare the column. Or if you use the table editor, in here, you see that this column is already in place, but if you're creating a new one, just click new, type in the column name, select data object relationship, select the table, which is the city, and then use the cardinality, which is 1-to-1. But I already have it in place. I just wanted to demonstrate what I have going on here. And in this video, I will demonstrate the final page and the functionality that it has first, just so you know what we're going to be working towards. And then we will just build a new page with the same functionality that I will walk you through so you can understand how to build something like this. So switching to front end, this is the design of my page. And in here, there is a section where I can create a person just by typing in the name and age. Then I will click the create person button. Once the person is created, this section will appear. And in here, I can just type in a city name, and then based on what I type, whatever matches the characters that I type, then the corresponding cities will appear in this drop-down list. I'll be able to select one, and by clicking this button right here, a relationship will be created between the created person and the selected city. Let's see that in action. So for instance, the person that I will be creating is Joe, and the age is, let's say, 30. Click create person. Then the city lookup section shows up. For instance, he lives in Dallas, and here I can just type in, just remove. So here, these are all the cities that in the database that start with DAL. I'm going to look up, I'm going to select Dallas and click link person to city. So now if I go back to my database and look up in the person table, as you can see, here's Joe that we created, and there is a relationship to city. So if I click on this relation, then it opens up the city, and as you can see, it is Dallas, Texas, exactly what we wanted to do. So now that you have seen this in action, let's build that page so you can understand everything that went into it from the codeless perspective, so you can actually do exactly the same thing. Let's create a new page. For this, we're going to go into here, type in the page name, and we'll call it create relation. Just use the landing page template. So to start, let's add a container. Container has this one cell. Let's replicate the cell. This will be used to create the person, and this will be used to look up the city. Let's start adding components, and in the first section, this will be for the name, and then another input will be used for age. Finally, a button. Let's add a button. And a good practice is to assign IDs to all the components. So this will be called name input, and then this will be age input. The button will be called create person button. Let's assign the labels. Here we will say create person, and then this, the label will be name, and this one, the label will be age. By the way, the type for age, let's select the number, because this will be accepting only numeric values. So when create person is clicked and the person is created, then the contents of this cell will need to become visible. So here we can call this city cell, and by default let's turn off display so it is not visible. We will make it visible when the person is created successfully. Let's add components to the second cell, and here there will be input, and here we will type in the label will be city name, the ID will be city name input, and we'll also need a drop-down list, and that will be right here, the select component. The ID will be cities list, and also we will need a button to create the relationship. Select the button, under settings, label, create relation. You can actually be a little bit explicit between person and city. There you go. And then the button is create relation button. All right, so at this point, all the UI components are in place. Let's start working on data binding. So for the first part, the name and age, we will use the data binding for the input components. Select name, go into logic, and then under value logic, let's just say it's going to be name. And then for age, the data binding will be age. And then for this button, go into the logic and then create the on-click event. And in here, we will be using the save object in backendless codeless block. The table name will be person. And now we need to create the object that contains name and age. For this, go into the object and then select the create object block. Modify the property names. This will be name. Add another one. This will be age. And let's get these values from page data, because in the data binding, it goes automatically into page data, which is that shared space accessible by all UI components. To get the value from page data, use this get property. It is under object. The property name is name, because that's what we used for data binding. And select this, Command C or Control C, Control V, depending on the operating system you're on. This will be age. So this will create the person. And now that the person is created, we can change the visibility of our second cell, because at this point we can display the related city. Well, it's not related yet, but we can just display the city selection. And in order to change the visibility, if we go into, I believe it is component, toggle component visibility, and in here, let's select city cell. As you can see, assigning those IDs is quite handy whenever you need to reference a specific section. So in here, you see all the ones that we have assigned an ID to. They have meaningful names, and it's very easy to select the one we want. So visible will be true. That's going to be under logic. Very good. So at this point, the functionality will be in place to create the person and then make this visible. Let's test this and see how well it works. All right, so let's say the name will be Bob and the age is 25. Click Create. There you go. So the object has been created and this became visible. In fact, if we go back to backend, and then as you can see, now we have Bob and age 25. Of course, there is no relation because we don't have a logic to create the relation. Let's start working on the logic of the city lookup. And the idea is that as you type in a value into city name, we create a query that goes to the database, fetches all the cities that match whatever you type in here, and we populate this cities list combo box. To start adding logic for city retrieval, select the input component and then go to the logic. And in here you will see the onChange event. The onChange event is triggered every time when the value of that input field changes, meaning you add, you type in a character or you remove one, use backspace, just any kind of change, this triggers this event. Click the green button to add logic, and notice that in the context you have the changed value. So this is what's in that text field right now. We will use that in our database query, which we will be creating momentarily. So go into the data API under backendless, and in here you will find this load table objects. Don't worry that you cannot attach it to anything yet, but we will be doing that momentarily. So the table name is going to be city. And then the where clause is going to be that query that we use to dictate to the database what kind of city objects need to be returned back. So let's compose that where clause. Under text, you will see this create text with. You'll need to add an additional connector, and you will see why in a second. And let's compose this query. So that query will look like this. What I did is I went to text and I grabbed this text block. And here it's going to be like this: name, like, single quote, then use the changed value, and grab another one, text block, and in here use %, and then single quote. So what this does is it creates the query where the name, which is the column in the city table, needs to match that pattern that we provided. So like is a special keyword in the queries that basically says, give me all the records where the name matches this pattern. And the pattern is as you can see, a single quote, because it's a string value, whatever you typed in, followed by % single quote. So the changed value is going to be like if you type in DAL for Dallas, then DAL % will match anything that starts with DAL. So the % is sort of a special character that the database will use to match anything that starts with this changed value and then followed by whatever. We also want to sort it by name. And then here in this sort by, let's create a list because it requires a list. Here where it is sort by, we need only one connector. And then we will be sorting by column names because we want all those cities to be sorted by name. Now, by the way, I need to check if the column name starts with uppercase or lowercase. I honestly don't remember. So to do this, let's go to backend, select city. And as you can see, the column name is name and capitalized. And since we're referencing this column, then we need to use exactly the same capitalization in the query. Go back to front end. And let's get back to our logic and change this name to uppercase. All right, so this, and let's just put the page size to 100, just get as many as we can. So this fetches all the cities that match that query. Now, what we're going to be doing is we need to transform this collection. So this will return a collection. So we need to transform this collection where we format it in a way that would be understood by our select component. Let's go back for a second to the user interface and select this select component. Notice that there are two properties, value key and label key. And then by default, they are value and label. This is extremely important because the select component operates with a collection of objects, and every single object needs to have value property and label property. Label is what's going to be visible on the screen whenever you click on the select component, and value is the actual value that will be represented or used by that label. So for instance, if we selected Dallas, then the value would need to be the object ID, for instance, of the record in the city table that represents Dallas. Let me add the logic so you can see exactly how we operate with this value and label. So in here, this returns collection, and let's use a special block under loops, actually not under loops, under collections, lists, that will be called map. There you go, map. So what this does, this gets the collection, this loops through this collection, and then does the transformation. So that transformation is that for every single entry in that collection, what we're going to do is we're going to transform it to something that will be understood by our select component. And that will look like this. Create object, and the property name will change it to value, and then add another one that is label. All right. Now notice that there is item element. It's sort of like a variable that represents an entry for one of the items in this collection. So the first, it's going to go through the first, second, third, and so on. And then the item will change in that loop to a corresponding entry. And here we just need to extract for value. Let's get object ID of item. And item is going to be under variables. And then for this one, for label, it's going to be name. And name is the name of the column. So in the item will represent the city. So we're getting object ID and the name of every single city. And then what map returns, it's going to be yet another collection. And that collection we will use to populate our select component. For this, let's create a variable called cities. And then set cities to whatever this map returns. So now the transformed cities in the format that is understood by the select component is sitting in the cities variable. And we need to put the cities variable into page data. So for this, if we go to object and then do set property in page data, and the property name could be cities, and the value will be the variable called cities. By the way, this name, it could be cities collection. It doesn't matter. We will just have to remember what this property name is, cities collection. And then if we go back to the user interface, select the select component. And in here you will see there is options logic. And options is the data binding for that collection of values and labels that the drop-down box needs to display. And in here we put cities collection. Go back in here. Let's go to our logic. All right, so just go over this one more time. We retrieve objects from the database. We process each and every one in that collection with this map items to create and yet another collection that contains objects with value and label properties. Put it into the variable and then place the value of that variable, which is collection, into the cities collection property in page data. This could have been done without the cities variable. We could have easily taken map items and then just connected it like this to the value. But I used the cities variable because we need to use it for something else. And what that something else is quite important from the user experience. Without it, the user experience is going to be exactly as I will show you now. So you will see exactly what is not working well. So let's create a new person. That is going to be Dave, age 35, create person. And let's start typing in cities. So let's say M. So that's going to fetch all the cities that's starting with M. But as you can see, the select component, it looks like nothing has changed. Yet, if you click on it, there you go. Here are all the cities starting with M. So a good user experience would be that as you start typing the city, then the first one, let's say it's going to be this Mobara, should be selected automatically. So selection, the first one, I believe would be good user experience. And that's exactly what we're going to do next. So now that we have this cities collection, what we can do is we can take the first object from that collection and then put it into page data for data binding, and then use something in our select component to configure that to display the very first one. All right, basically it's going to be the data binding for the property to display the selected option. All right, how are we going to do this? Let's add another set property in here, page data, and then call the property selected city. And then the selected city is going to be first object from cities. So in here, let's get the list. And in here, we can get in our cities collection, get first. All right. But what we're going to get first is the actual object. However, what we need to do is to get just the value. And for this, let's do get property and then put the cities into here. And then the property that we're going to get is going to be value. So what this will do is it will get the first object from cities. And then from that object, it will get the value property and put it into selected city. And now if we go to our select component, click the logic, notice that there is value logic. And the value logic is the value that needs to be displayed. And that will be selected city. So now if we go to and run this page, and let's say it's going to be Jan, age 28, create person, and let's start typing city. There you go. So as I type the city, it selects the first one. And that's exactly what we want. So now we have the selected city. Now we have created the person. And we can start using establishing the relationship. To do this, first of all, when we create the person, that person needs to be also stored in page data, because when we start creating the relationship, we need to know what person we will be creating the relationship with. The selected city we'll already have. It's going to be the first city. It is already in page data. So for this, let's go to create person and do return result, because we need to get the actual person, and then do set property in. Let's move this out. The property will be created person, and it will be set in page data, and then add our visibility. So the created person property in page data will contain the person that we created. So that's important. Now let's click this button and add the logic for establishing the relationship. For the on-click event, click the green plus button, and let's add the Codeless logic to establish relationship between the person and the city object. In the Data API category of the backend list section on the left here, you'll find a block that says Set Object Relations. Drag it out into the on-click event. The table name is going to be person. The parent object, we already have it in page data. This is the parent object that we created early on in the application when we clicked the button to create the person. And let's get it right from page data. The property that it's bound to is going to be called created person. The relation name, which will be the column in the person table, and I went over that at the beginning of the video, is going to be called city of residence. Let's add the text block and type in the name of the column. And then the children connector is going to be a collection of child objects. In our case, there's going to be a collection of just one. So go to lists and then grab this one, create list with. Make sure to remove the connectors that we don't need. There's going to be only one child in this relationship. And that child is going to be the selected city, so which is also bound to a property in page data. So grab page data, put into this get property, and then the property name is selected city. This block right here is the essence of this video. This is what it is all about. However, as you noticed, there are quite a few additional steps to create a person, to select the city, simply because this block requires some additional context, such as the person object, which is the parent object here, and at least one child. So the logic is very straightforward once you understand how the set object relations block works. That's all it is going to take. So now we can go back to the page and see how it works. Run this page to see the whole thing in action. So let's say it's going to be Kate, age 34, create person. Let's say it's going to be Boston, There you go, Boston. And then click create relation between person and city. And in our database, there needs to be a record between Kate with a relationship to Boston. Let's take a look. Go to backend. And then under person, we have Kate and this relationship to Boston. There you go. Exactly what we wanted to see. Previously, we created that Kate again, but just to avoid the confusion, let's actually reload this page and create someone new. Fred, 45, create person. Let's select New York. Here's New York. Create relationship. Go back to the database. Let's refresh. And here it is. We have Fred, 45, with a relationship to New York. Exactly what we wanted to see. I do hope you found this useful. This video includes a lot of concepts and a lot of steps, but it is extremely important. And I know in the applications that people build with backendless, setting up relationships is a very, very common task that comes up very frequently. So I hope you understood and found this useful. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please contact us on our support forum. We'll be more than happy to assist you. But once again, understanding how relationships work in backendless is going to be one of the most crucial elements of knowledge that you need to have to build powerful applications. Thanks again, guys. And as always, happy codeless coding.